Now, unlike our last game, this isn't shit. That might shock you, but it's an opinion I'm absolutely going to stick with. Hard Drivin, an old game that's roundly mocked to an incredible degree these days, is decidedly not shit. More than that, its conversion on the Mega Drive, which we'll mainly be focusing on, isn't shit either. And here's why. Now this is of course an arcade conversion, of quite possibly the most advanced arcade game of the entire era, and not just because Hard Drivin was basically the world's first 3D driving sim. The word simulator is very appropriate. The game was built from the ground up to be as accurate as possible. The machine contains a clutch and stick shift to go along with the accelerator and brakes, but it's also got a wheel that's not just full of force feedback whenever you take a bump, but moves and tightens realistically depending on how you're driving. It'll go tight when you're losing grip, actually move violently with a crash, all sorts. The 3D graphics were one thing, but the wheel was something else. It is, for many people, a pretty damn good simulation of actually driving a car. It was utterly revolutionary at the time, an arcade game that deserved serious respect for all it did, and one that was also quite fun to play. If your arcade could afford it, seeing as how it cost $10,000 brand new and all. This was a centrepiece of the arcade type game, one that always attracted an audience, waiting for whoever was on it to screw up so that everyone could laugh at the crashes. Nothing mundane about this, the original game was a beast. Now there were a lot of conversions of Hard Drivin, with all the home computers getting, well, something. Atari had to make the money back from developing the thing some way after all. And yes, before you ask, you can play Hard Drivin on the ZX Spectrum. It tries hard and it's not quite as deserving of the golden not a sodding chance award as Stun Runner is, but still, yeah, it's not playable. I kind of get the feeling that this is also how people remember the Mega Drive version though, which is more than a little unkind. This version was developed by Sterling Silver, who also handled the ports for PGA Tour Golf, making them the foremost experts on working on 3D games for the Mega Drive in 1990. Now, you need to forget about anything close to arcade perfection, it's just not possible. The closest you'll get for that is Midway Arcade Treasures 2 on the PS2, and even then it's not like that comes packed in with the game's wheel. Even the 32-bit generation wouldn't have been able to do even close to an arcade-perfect port of Hard Drivin. So we need to look at the fun factor and, despite the claims of realism, not expect the game to be an ultra-realistic sim in 16 bits. You kind of have to do a bit of doublethink here. One of the troubles people often have with Hard Drivin is that they seem to expect it to be a racing game, which it's not. It's a driving game. The other people on the track aren't your competitors, although they certainly do get in the way. At first the game seems stupidly short too. You start it, you go on one of the courses and set a time that allows you to compete against the Phantom Photon, a ghost car, in the championship lap on the stunt course, with no other cars on the road. You beat the Photon, which isn't even remotely hard so long as you don't crash, and boom, game over. That's it. You could potentially complete Hard Drivin in less than 5 minutes. The minute 40 required to qualify for the championship can be achieved even with a couple of crashes thrown in, and all you need to beat the Photon is to drive reasonably fast and just not crash. He's as slow as a crippled tortoise. What a waste of money, huh? Except you haven't actually completed it. The real competition in Hard Drivin is against whoever's on top of the leaderboard at the time, whether that's you or anyone else who happens to be playing. If you play again, to get to the championship lap you need to set a lap on either the speed or stunt course that's no less than 5 seconds outside of your previous winning lap, and then you try and beat that previous winning lap in the championship. So the pull of the game isn't about just beating whoever's on top, it's about pushing yourself as hard as you can possibly go and setting the best time. Hence the name really, Hard Drivin. And so there's no way to complete the game as such. Hard Drivin is an old school arcade game based on high scores, or fast laps in this case, with the added bonus of a final test in order to actually beat the previous fastest time, where it just all comes together. As alluded to, the Hard Drivin track consists of 2 courses, Speed and Stunt. You can complete both in around the same time. Speed is longer but virtually obstacle free, while Stunt is shorter and obviously has tons of obstacles. The Speed course is pretty easy to learn and is usually my go-to for setting a hot lap that'll qualify. And then it's all about practicing the Stunt course, where the fun really begins, seeing just how hard you can go on all those obstacles. There's ramps, jumps, dips, a loop-de-loop, a big banking turn, barriers, barnyards, petrol stations, all sorts of opportunities to fuck up big time. They always tell you to go slow, but, well, you're gonna have to push eventually if you want the top time, because championship laps always take place on the Stunt course. And so, what with all these fins in the way, one thing is quite inevitable. Crashes will happen. Lots of crashes. And damn it, they're still really fun, especially because they come with an instant replay, which seemed amazing at the time even if it probably wasn't that hard to actually code in. I mean, it's in the specky version too. No matter what, however, there's plenty of ways to crash. The best for me though is probably on the loop-de-loop, just because you can send your car absolutely flying into the sky. Generally, crashing into anything will result in something that's rather amusing though. A tradition that came straight from the arcade game, which also realised that no matter how expensive and sim-like the game was, watching a fiery wreck that was once your car shoot hundreds of feet into the sky is always going to be quite funny. There are certain issues, of course, the main one being that this is a 3D game on a 16-bit console from 1991. It is not a looker in the slightest. There's not a texture to be found anywhere, just straight and quite low quality polygons, meaning that the cars do not exactly look aerodynamic to say the least. Yeah, it's not pleasant to look at. Even if you may like dirty early polygons, well, there are limits. Another issue for some people might be the speed, which has been kind of overstated over time. Honestly, the game doesn't run that badly. I mean, you could probably overclock your MD's processor to make it run even faster if you wanted to, but it is playable. If you can handle the likes of Star Fox, then this'll be a breeze. If you want really slow, well, go ahead and play the game's sequel, either here or on the SNES. The controls aren't as complex as the original, but straightforward enough. It's not that difficult of a drive, which is probably for the best considering the platform, and you do get the choice between automatic and manual depending on how far you want to go. One really annoying issue for me, perhaps the big issue, is the complete lack of a battery backup. You can't save those times after you're done, which is a bit of an oversight that makes it quite a bit annoying to push the game to its very limit. And it's only partially fixable with a scrap of paper in the manual. You still got to go through the phantom photon and shit every time. But, well, good lord, the game is not even nearly as bad as some people say it is. I've seen this game put amongst the Mega Drive's worst, which is astounding to me. There are many worse attempts at driving on the system. It's still perhaps lingering around the middle of the chasing pack, behind the likes of Super Monaco GP2 and what have you. But what I dig about Hard Drivin is how simple the package is, and how what it does hasn't actually been replicated all that much. Only a few games since have ever just revelled in crashing all that much. And so few games just let you screw around doing test drives and hot laps without always being distracted by the million other things they do. And geez, just how many games give you the chance to do a big loop-de-frickin-loop? When was the last time you saw that in, I don't know, Forza? You didn't, and I wouldn't hold your breath for any big driving game to do any shit like that ever again. Hard Drivin may have tried to do physics like no other game before it, but that didn't mean it took itself too seriously. And the Mega Drive version, well, it's just fine. PS2 aside, it's undoubtedly the best of all the game's conversions. Even if most of those are rubbish. It's certainly worth taking a punt on for a couple of quid these days. And if you really need a second opinion that's not mine, well, just go ahead and ask this cow. I think that speaks volumes, don't you? Thanks so much for watching this little video about Hard Drivin. As ever, if you like this video, please consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, and following me on my social media, my Twitter, my Facebook, and also supporting me on Patreon. Okay, someone requested that I do the usual synonym in a different way, so let's give it a go. Jason Leach, Taylor Armand, Martin Pataki, Mark Johnston, Twisted Squat, Joel Hartman, Grant Butler, Lee Norris, Romeo, Peter Sidon, Phil Tapog, Ben Coker, Jamie Hampshire, Olaf Falbean, Ian Roberts, Grayson Blackpool, Tiago Pereira, Dos Santos Silva, Andre Russell, Dragon Sex Master, Vishadi. Okay, that was something, I guess. And of course I have some other people to thank, so let's go. Tim Lentz, Robert Kelly, Joey Crocker, Ken Barraclough, Kenneth Bergen, Alvaro Gonzalez, Wyden the Bullet, Jamie Davenport, Johan Eriksson, Stephen Hornsby, Jan Best, Robin Banks, Dan Roscoe, Christian Earnshaw, El O'Brien, Francisco Pimenta, Kev Gilmore, Matt Lee, Alexander Green, Thomas Daniels, Greg Olson, Mark Johnson, Stuart Ashen, Lee Harris, James Idd, Novel, Gerard Morris, Mike Siegler, Mark Brooks, Edge Reader, Russell Hugo, Paolo Leary, Graham Kamak, Scott Mitten, Nicole Ketchum, Ninth Demon, Ludwig Holmstrom, John Izell, and Kit Leary. Thank you all so much, as well as all my other patrons. I love you all. So next up, it will, indeed, finally be the story and games of Psygnosis. Cannot wait to show that off, that's certainly going to be something. But until then, wherever you are, whoever you be, have a good one, take care, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.